So I think we released the previous Studio Ghibli film when Marnie was there about 9 years ago, and we sort of expected that that would be one of the sort of maybe last works or something of the studio. It wasn't clear exactly what they were working on. They ended up creating another film called Earwig and the Witch that was CG. But around 5 or 6 years ago, we got a call saying, Hayao Miyazaki's cooking up something. We can't share too many details yet, but don't expect it anytime soon was, I think, the real message. And so it was basically like, don't plan your life around it, but we'll keep you kind of updated as it goes. And I think there was no deadline given, no timeline at all. It was just basically a totally open process. He ended up actually ended up going a lot faster during COVID because it ended up really focusing both him and the team. They didn't really have a whole lot else going on. And so that was sort of, I think, just being supported from afar. And then about a year or 18 months ago, I think, is when our work sort of began. We started working with Studio Ghibli about 12 years ago, and we, handle a lot of aspects of their all aspects of the North American business, but also a lot of international. So we came in to help with English dub and do other things. So yeah, it's really started heating up about 18 months ago. The first time I saw the film was, something I'll remember, for the rest of my life. It was going out to their studio in Tokyo, and at that point there was no music, there was no dialogue recorded. It was just just the cuts, just the reels, and so they just played it in their screening room for me, completely silent. I was jet lagged, and I was worried that if I was going to watch something silent and extremely tired, that maybe I would not be bringing my best self. But in fact, it ended up creating this like a very intense sort of like dream-like relationship to it. I found myself just like bowled over emotionally just from the feeling of just like the beauty of what I was seeing, and just the emotion of sort of seeing that this master filmmaker had sort of kept his fastball and created something. And then I think I felt the immediate crushing weight of being sort of the person who would have to help make sure that like an audience actually saw the film. And so that like it's a very brief but a very intense high, followed by incredible stress, for the next year, which wasn't necessarily helped when I think they decided that they were going to not promote the film in Japan as sort of a stunt, which meant that we had to create basically the first of everything: the first trailer, the first poster, the first sort of the way that the film was sort of carried internationally. So that's that's also a tremendous honor. And so I think that for me, the second sort of time I got to see the film, after all of that, the first time with an actual audience at the Toronto Film Festival was also incredible, because just to see someone sort of outside, I guess like the inner sanctum, sort of be able to see this film and feel what I feel, and feel that was like, not just me, not an isolated experience, was incredibly moving. And so yeah, I mean, that's I've seen the film now with audiences like 24 times, because it feels like such an emotional kind of communal experience. And what I'll personally take away, I mean, there's lots of like little sort of things, as there are for every sort of project like this, but I think in sort of the larger scale, I think really feeling better, I think, about trusting the audience, which feels really cliche, I guess, but the film, as I saw it when I first experienced it, is really complicated. There's a lot of sort of either like there's darkness, the main character is sort of emerging from a fog of depression and sort of has to like sort of become bigger. There's like horror elements. There's a lot going on that I think would sort of fight against what I think is an incorrect but sort of mainstream assumption of sort of like what animation is, and how like what our kids and families are supposed to interact with things. And there was a lot of conversations, I think, early on about like, how much should sort of marketing or advertising or other kinds of things hide these aspects and sort of make it sort of feel smoother. And I think that, and those were pretty serious discussions. We felt like our main job was to get an audience in to see the film, and then they could take away what they wanted to. But early on when we had the first audience screening, and we actually got the feedback from people who were sort of appreciated, I think, and really liked the sort of more confrontational elements. I think that really had a huge impact on our thinking, and we decided that we would actually lean into that. And I think that the success that it's had theatrically, I attribute a lot to to social media and to audiences who are actually talking about something. I think that over the last couple of years, the industry has changed so much, where there's just so many shows and films and things available to anyone 24/7, that in fact things that feel like they have a little bit more of a human touch, that they're able to sort of grapple with some of these deeper emotions and not sort of just be sort of created by a committee. I think people tell, and I think that they are really looking for something like that and want to talk about it. So certainly, for upcoming projects, I know that we're not going to shy away, I think, from sort of challenging, I guess, people's conceptions about what animation can do. I think in part it's that he puts so much of himself, into the films, and that I think that he is so clearly working through different aspects of like his own thoughts and life. I mean, it was interesting, when the AI stuff really started to take off. One of the clips that went around social a lot is there's like a documentary where these people like show him this like AI tool that they're building, and he like has an extremely negative reaction. It's like, this is an insult to life. This is like, this is
Saw that. That was
you're
crazy.
basically, you're taking like the role of God or something, and it's disgusting. And I think that the sort of uncompromising feeling of just like sort of through his age, through his stature, or whatever, just being able to sort of be able to say what he wants, I think is really relevant. And on the AI side, I think like I do think I agree with what everyone has said, so far. I think that it is, I think, a tool that can be used, in the future. If we take like a step back and sort of in moderation, I think that there's ways that talented people can always, take advantage of new technology, and the industry will adapt. I think it's particularly, but I think we have to stay vigilant, and I think it's suffering right now also from having some of the nastiest ambassadors, I think, pushing it. I think that like when you see people talking about it, then you sort of talk about the democratization of art. It's really quickly sort of the mask is revealed that there's like almost a glee about being able to like take it away from artists, even though these models are trained on thousands, if not millions, of pieces of artist labor. And so I think that that's I think that's kind of what gets people also really riled up about it, is that I think there's a respect in terms of just how the tools are used and sort of what's coming out of it, and sort of looking at this stuff and being like, oh, this thing with like 6 fingers and it looks like it's all like mistrained. I'm never gonna watch anything that's created by like a real human again or something. It's just, you're fooling yourself. So obviously they'll get better, and I think that animation has some specific ways to use it, but like, yeah, I'm not I don't know, I'm not super concerned just yet. I think that it's yeah, Princess Mononoke, I think, was really, I mean, I grew up in a smaller town in the Midwest. We didn't really get much in the way of like what I would call like art house or independent cinemas. It was really just kind of like the biggest releases. And so I had, a great time watching all kinds of, studio films that blew my mind and did make a lasting impression. But that was the first time I remember sitting in a theater and just being like, this is, to see something of this scale, in an actual theatrical setting, really changed my life. I think that was really the level of the themes he was working with, the violence, the kind of the emotion, the sort of no bad, no good, just kind of gray area stuff, I think was really impressive to me, as sort of an early lesson in storytelling and how that can work. And then I think the other follow-up, not a film, but a series, sort of similarly, Neon Genesis Evangelion was like the first thing that I watched that I think like I would get in like forum fights over. And I remember spending countless hours, in like early iterations of the internet, like on like Usenet, boards, whatever, just like arguing over like the stupidest minor details or something. And so to care that passionately about animation, that's when I was like, all right, this is like probably where I should go. So, I mean, I hope that they take away sort of the underlying message, which is that you can get through anything. is really, a big piece of it. I think that that's sort of the sort of emotional truth at the center of it. And then, I guess from the whatever the industry perspective, I mean, I hope that it provides, further proof that there's both artistic and financial viability in 2D, even as I think there's incredible things being done, in multiple different formats, but obviously it's a business. And so I think studios always look at sort of what's working, and there is a path, I think, for 2D to still be able to reach people emotionally, even if it feels maybe a little old fashioned.